Just gonna start at the beginning. So with property management, it's an added customization package. It's just oversight of real estate by a third party. A lot of what we're seeing today and is working well for us is that we have uh, users that are using construction, our construction edition, and they're building properties. And then, as opposed to hiring a third party to manage them, they actually have a division of their group that manages those properties for them. So it makes for a nice transition and a great way for us to sell and package Acumatica, because not only are they developing the property through a construction module and the project management piece, but they're also able to add on property. Generally, anyone that's doing property management is responsible for the day-to-day operations that are happening. This could be screening tenants that are going to be occupying a space. This could be working with a maintenance team or maybe vendors for repairs and general upkeep of the property. As the management company is managing that property, there are a group of owners, sometimes just one owner, and in return for managing that property, the owner will pay the property management team a fee, or percentage of the rent that's generated by that property over time. Sometimes that's paid out quarterly or annually. I think more often than not, you'll find it's annually. One of the unique things is that each state's going to have its own laws. So in the U.S., you'll find that there's some general or broad rules as far as management of properties go, but each state in the U.S. Essentially can have its own regulations. We also have some people that are using property in South Africa. We have some that are using property in Australia and Canada. So it keeps it interesting for us. There's two main buckets right now that we're dividing up property in. One is what we're currently supporting and feel that we could comfortably support, and then there's others that, uh, for lack of better terms, competitors could do it better at the moment. So this top bucket is what we're currently supporting. So when we talk about what we're going out there and we're selling or targeting, we're looking at office spaces. So prior to the pandemic, when people were going into the office, those big, small rise, high rise buildings, industrial spaces, where you could be doing something very specific in kind of a niche market like manufacturing or oil or energy. Your retail spaces like malls or outdoor malls or strip malls. Mixed use, we can do, to some extent. Mixed use is the concept that you have part of the building that's dedicated to living spaces where people occupy that space, and another part of that property is dedicated to a retail or business space. And then also land, as people are getting ready to build on the properties that they're purchasing, they may just need to be managing the land and paying taxes on the land itself until they're ready for development. Things that we're not ready to handle just yet are single or multifamily homes. There's some competitors out in the space that do this really well, and it's very saturated. This is your normal, day-to-day house for single family, or this could be multifamily where you're dealing with townhomes or garden apartments, high-rise apartments, condos. Hoteling and hospitality, we don't do really well because there's some configurations around, charging daily, that so on and so forth. And there's just some overall special purpose that we're not ready to tackle yet. Some of what I just described to you, this gives you some visuals of what we talk about with office spaces, what they might look like. Sorry, some of these are blurry photos, but industrial spaces, retail spaces, that's really what we're targeting. When we talk about property management, there are some key features that we're adding on to Acumatica that are not necessarily used by existing customers. There's the concept of managing a lease. So when a tenant moves into a space, there's a lease agreement similar to our contracts that we have in Acumatica. In fact, when the ISV partner built this customization, they utilized parts of the contract piece or contract module that you'll see when we go through some of that functionality. There is the concept of common area maintenance recovery and reconciliation. So, probably the best example I could give of this is an office building, right? Like, as an example, our Acumatica offices that's going to be shared with other tenants in a particular building. So you walk into a lobby, as an example, or maybe each floor has its own restrooms and hallways. Well, there has to be some kind of maintenance to upkeep that space and in either the property management company update or maintaining it or hiring a vendor to maintain it, there's costs associated with that. So what happens is the management company will charge that cost back to the tenants over time. Usually, it's an annual calculation that they do, and this is something that we're working on adding to property management so we can do a little bit better than the way that we do it today in Acumatica. But essentially, they can calculate costs based on the square footage or square meters that a specific tenant is occupying of a building. They could also do this in a retail space based on the amount of sales, the dollar amount of sales. There's the concept of security deposits. When you're occupying a space or you're wanting to occupy a space, in some cases, the managers may or the owner may require that you put up a security deposit to hold for damages or whatnot in your space. Late fee processing, obviously, you have a deadline to pay your rent every month. So if you don't pay that on time, you need to charge late fees. Um, Obviously, if you're creating leases, you need a way to renew those leases. So when we talk about leases in commercial, where we're doing really well right now, you're looking at lease terms that are on average 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years versus your residential leases, which are typically 6 months to a year. So we need a way to handle those renewals. Vacancy, same thing. There's usually reporting that the owners need to see or have access to understand how much money they're losing when a space is vacant for any given amount of time. If they're not leasing it, they're not making money. And then here on the right side, there's some things that we borrow from the existing Acumatica. There are some billing and invoicing options where we lean on AR, the receivables in Acumatica today, and some additions that we'll want to do in the coming year. There's a reminder systems for property and the tenant itself as far as rental payments. This borrows off of the existing notification functionality in Acumatica. Same with facilities management, so being able to create a work project, a work order, that kind of thing. There's also the concept of utility billing. Utilities you can be charged to the property management company and then charged back to the tenant, or they could be charged directly to the tenant and we never see that bill. There's also amenities that we can track for a property or a space in a property. With commercial properties, you might have um, that you want to track higher level floors versus lower level floors. Maybe some that have windows, some that don't have very many windows, some that are facing the highway, some that are facing maybe the ocean. Who knows? And then we have the integrations with the AP, AR, and GL modules that already exist in Acumatica today. So let's take a look really quick at customers that you might interface with and what they do. Here's a snapshot of an actual customer that we have using property in construction today. This is the Atlantic Companies. They are a developer and they also manage the properties that they develop in some cases. They've been around since 1995. They have a portfolio that is pretty unique. It not only do they have office spaces, but they also have some buildings where they do like life sciences and like laboratories and things like that. They have mixed use in some cases where they have retail and commercial space, sorry, retail and living spaces. They also do some residential, retail, and industrial spaces. If you go out to their website today, you could see some examples of the projects that they've built and are maintaining across the US right now, primarily in Georgia, since that's where they're headquartered. Some of the opportunities that we see with customers like the Atlantic companies is that if you were to go out to their website today, they pride themselves on being a one-stop shop in the sense that somebody could pick out a tract of land with them, work with them to develop a building on that land, and then take it all the way through to managing that property. So for us, a good selling point for them is that they can use Acumatica to maintain that full cycle. They don't have to worry about using one system to manage the project of standing up the property and then try to go look for another system to actually manage the property. They can do end to end here. So that's a good selling point for someone like Atlantic companies. This is an ideal customer. So when we're talking to our partners, when we're talking to anyone that's at pre-sales within our organization, we don't have a customer like this yet, but this is what they might look like. This is Lamar Companies. They are also, they do a little bit of development, but they invest and they manage. They're also not a new company. They've been around since 1972. Their portfolio right now is primarily office and retail space, which we can do pretty well with that with the existing property management module. They've got portfolios all across the US. Where we come in as an opportunity for them is that they have those properties nationwide. So since regulations and requirements can vary state by state, um, we we help in the sense that they don't have their financial and legal documents floating between systems. They can see everything in one place. Um, they can factor in things like sales tax where they need it and it's changing, and then customize their billing how they need it state by state too.